I'm back in the studio today with my guest, Jesse Klein. The main part of this episode has a video component. You can find it over on my YouTube channel. The link is in the description. I met Jesse at a cacao ceremony. He's the partner of Sina Schellenberger, my guest from episode 2. In that episode, we talked about cacao and ayahuasca. And the day after recording it, I went to a ceremony facilitated by Sina. And after about 5 minutes of talking with Jesse, we discovered that we had a lot in common. That being that both of us had done an ayahuasca intensive, meaning many ceremonies in a small span of time. And we had kind of a breakdown afterwards, or almost like a healing crisis of sorts. I go into more about that in the episode and exactly what I mean by that. But I invited him to come on my podcast and tell his story, and also because I wanted to relate it to mine and see what we had in common about having this unusual experience that very few people have of doing a lot of ayahuasca all at once. And there's something that happened to both of us where we got to a really high height and then things kind of fell apart. And I've noticed after talking to many people that this is something that can happen. So I just wanted to put this out there as somewhat of a cautionary tale about ayahuasca. We also talk about the benefits and the profound impact that this plant medicine has had on our lives. But, you know, ayahuasca being a fairly new thing to Western culture, I think many times opportunities or medicines like ayahuasca can only have a positive reputation or only have a negative reputation. And I want to offer something more balanced and talk about both sides of the benefits and also the risks and the dangers. So that is this episode. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for coming down, Jesse. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah.
So you did about 100 ceremonies in the span of about 3 years, you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. 2.5, 3.
That's quite a bit.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said you were doing regular ceremonies maybe about once a week or once every other week.
Yeah. There was periods of time where it was more of them in a short period of time.
Yeah.
Say average, maybe one every 3 weeks
Okay.
over that period.
Yeah.
3 years. Yeah.
And what, did you know that you wanted to do that much ceremony, or did you just start and it just kind of kept going?
It was combination of, just being really in that lifestyle and really feeling the incredible transformations that were taking place. I was kind of becoming like a transformation junkie, and going to these circles and having my mind blown again and again.
Right.
And feeling the love afterwards, feeling the openness, the connectedness, and just wanting more of that and feeling like, wow, this is the way to live. We're doing it. We're creating the tribe, the new tribe. And it's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It is. I've been there too. I did not that many ceremonies in that amount of time, but I did about 2 different periods of 12 ceremonies in about 4 months. So about 1 ceremony per week over the course of 4 months. And it does get kind of addictive, but in a good way. Kind of like exercise becomes addictive at a certain point. And there's this feeling of, it just feels good to be super aligned with yourself, and being on the medicine and being on the medicine path kind of just elevates me. And I've seen with a lot of other people too, it puts you in a greater state of equilibrium. And I feel so much sharper and clearer. And I also feel like a sense of satisfaction from doing hard work, because ayahuasca work and plant medicine work in general can be very challenging. Like really going in there and confronting yourself, getting in touch with your fears, getting in touch with your negative patterns and actively changing it. It's definitely not easy. A lot of people spend their lives running from that stuff.
Right.
And so there is a sense of pride in a way, but like a healthy pride or confidence that can come about.
Yeah.
But so what got us first talking about it, because you told me you had done that much ceremony, and I asked you, I was like, I'm curious, like after you stopped, because you said after that period of time you didn't drink ayahuasca for 3 years, and you're still in that period where that was about 3 years ago.
It was.
Yeah. And I asked you out of curiosity because of my own experience, hey, did you happen to feel kind of like a slow crash after that point, like a coming down period? And you said, yeah. And I was like, okay, we got to talk about this on the podcast, because the same thing happened to me as well. Yeah. So I want to talk about that first. I want to get later into sort of the higher experiences, but I wanted to talk about this because there's so much benefit from ayahuasca ceremonies, but there's also this other side which I think people don't realize. And there's a certain way to go about working on yourself in such a deep shamanic way that it's integration basically, and staying grounded. And there's these kind of pitfalls that sounds like both of us fell into, and many neophytes on the path fall into, because it's so new to our culture. Yeah. And so I really wanted to talk about the importance of being in balance. So would you just tell us a little bit about what was it like to stop doing ceremony, and then how did that unfold for you afterwards?
It really came about because I realized that at a certain point I was going and I wasn't receiving as much. I was kind of just showing up, and it was almost like the medicine just said, like, I've given you enough. Like, you're good. You don't need any more of me right now. And I would just go and like try to feel and like go back into that place of like opening and deepening. And I mean, it was still what it was, but I just realized like, this is just it's not what I need anymore. At a certain, too much medicine can be poison. Right. Too much of anything is not, and it's like, so yeah, I just listened to that voice that was like, this is not actually medicine for you anymore. And at the same time was started to feel all these physical ailments, I guess, feeling really fatigued, just like weak. Like it took a lot out of me. I was feeling like, I started getting some digestion problems. Just felt like my internal systems were kind of thrown out of whack. And I think that's not just from the medicine. That was like a combination of like the diet I was eating before for much of my life, and possibly picking up some parasites in, Australia or Thailand or whatever, and then not dealing with that in the proper way, and then jumping right into a bunch of medicine work that was pretty hard on my body. Yeah. And ayahuasca it does have a body burden associated with it. It's cleansing and healing to the body in some cases, but if you do too much, it can be hard, especially on the liver. Yeah.
and other organ systems as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some experiences in ceremony. So I had two different intensives.
Mm-hmm.
One was 4 months long in Maui in
Mm-hmm.
2011, and then the second time was in Sedona for about 4 months as well, 12 ceremonies each in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of both of these intensives, I also started to feel weakness in my body.
Yeah.
And one of the messages I was getting in ceremony and the experiences was that I didn't have enough like body mass. I felt like I did, and like both of us are thin guys.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I felt like I didn't have enough fat on my body, and I didn't have enough muscle on my body. And I mean, not only is ayahuasca itself kind of tough on the body, but there's a diet associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't eat any food during the day of the ceremony. Some people eat like a light breakfast or something like that. But for the most part, you eat very little to no food for the entire day of, and then you do the ceremony at night, and the ceremony lasts several hours into the night. And I was finding myself getting really tired, like midway through the ceremony, and just having trouble focusing, just even having trouble like fully sitting up straight and feeling strong.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the messages that I kept getting was, hey, like if you're going to do this, you need to replenish your body between ceremonies. Like it's helpful to come in with some fat on your body, with some muscle, particularly muscle on my body.
Yeah.
And I'm a thin body frame, and unless I build muscle, I just have, I don't know, I'm not like super thin, but I just felt like I didn't have enough. And what it was showing me was, you know, muscle and body mass, it's like having battery packs on your body. Totally. And you get deep into the ceremony, and that body weight can sustain you to to actually be able to continue the work and be more present for that experience. That it's a part of the preparation. Yeah. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I got the message, but I didn't take the action.
Right.
And I wasn't withering away or anything, but I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel strong in my body during that time. And I was kind of caught up in the, you know, exploration of my psyche and, just going into visionary states and having these really, really profound, beautiful experiences. Right. I was so attracted to that I wasn't fully listening to the messages that I was getting about balance. Yeah.
I really resonate with that. It's like you're speaking directly to my experience pretty much. I mean, for me, it was very much that. Felt like the withering away, getting really tired during the night. And the ceremony style that I was going to wasn't where you lay down and it's pitch black. It was like there's lights on, there's an altar in the middle, people are sitting up, shaking rattles and singing, and like it's very energetic. Right. And I would push myself to like sit up and be a warrior and like do this. And it was like sometimes it was just like fighting my adrenals, just like really like trying to make them work when really what they want to do is just lay down and sleep. Like that's what they're supposed to be doing at that time of night. So I really resonate with that. And also, you know, for me, I was into all this other stuff like physical cleansing. The peak of my, I'll call it naivete, was when I did a 3-day watermelon fast where all I ate for 3 days was watermelon. And then that culminated in the end of that, going into ceremony that night. Yeah. So 3 days of watermelon and then straight into ceremony. Yeah. And that was one of the hardest ones that I've been in. I mean, I was freezing, like shivering.
Yeah. It's not a good idea.
No, it was not a good idea.
I had one of those too. I did a 2-day coconut water fast in Hawaii, and then straight into ceremony.
Yeah.
And it was a powerful ceremony. I got like really, really lifted and really cleansed too. And you know, it's a little graphic, but whatever. I had to go to the bathroom, and we were in the jungle, and we just like dug a hole in the ground. Basically, that was our toilet.
Yeah.
And I've never in my life seen so much physical matter come out of me. It really, it completely emptied me, and probably it cleansed me. Like I hadn't eaten food in 2 days.
Right.
And it wasn't just like the food I had eaten previously. It really like fully cleansed my intestinal system, which I feel like was beneficial, but I was wiped the fuck out for like 2 or 3 days after that. And I had a hard time really. I mean, I made it through the ceremony, but I was just laying there. Like I couldn't sing. I was like, and going into it, I thought, oh, this is going to be a really good idea. And
of course,
I can't say I didn't get anything out of it, but that's just a caveat to anybody who wants to try that. You know, it comes at a cost, you know, and
exactly.
I really, really feel at this point in my experience that it's important to come in with a lot of bodily strength. Like you want to be really well rested. You want to be well fed, you know, for like the weeks, the days and weeks prior, even if you don't eat the day of. You want to have a lot of energy because it takes a lot of energy. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, if my experience can help anyone like learn from my mistakes, you know, I would say it does, like, you get something out of it, but at what cost? There's always a cost. I mean, it's not an eternally giving medicine. It'll take something from you too. Yeah. And whether that's, you know, toxins from your body or, you know, parts of your like habitual patterns that you want to release, or, you know, energetic strength, you know, that your, or immune system strength. For me, it was that, you know, I did it so much and stayed up so many times all night. And then, you know, 2 nights in a row sometimes. So I'd stay up all night, and then the morning would come and my whole adrenal system would be out of whack. So I wouldn't sleep because my body would be pumping adrenaline because the sunlight was coming up, which tells you to, all right, it's a new day, give you some cortisol, give you some energy, even though I hadn't slept all night. And then I'd just go throughout the day and then maybe nap for half an hour and then do it again the next night. That really takes its toll. Yeah. And it's easy to, you know, not feel like anything's wrong because that day in between I was so high, so connected with people and so like in awe of life and like, wow, I just did so much good work last night, connecting with all my friends. It's so yummy and juicy. But
and that energy can kind of fuel you to, I mean, it's absolutely, you're having these peak experiences, just insights and, you know, things that maybe you never experienced before or never even dreamed of. Like it really can expand you and fills you with excitement. And I think for many, many people that you can ride that wave at the cost of your body, and you can kind of like want to push past that to keep going. But,
and the general vibe of the group that I was in, and a lot of my friends at the time were really into the ascension style of life, you know. So really like we're ascending past our body, past our physical ailments, past everything, and we're moving up. And so that was, you know, part of the cleansing is like getting really light, you know, releasing all the physical things in my body and like all the toxins and really you know,
Yeah.
And it turns out, doing a bunch of juice fasts for my body type isn't necessarily the best way to go.
Right.
And also doing medicine at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it's not strengthening, like we're talking about building muscle mass and building more meat on the bones. That's not the way to do it.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's an interesting, like, I don't quite know how to feel about the whole ascension thing. Like I get the energetic of it and the aim of it. And I guess I'll talk about it for people who have no idea what this is. I mean, it's hard to encapsulate, but I would say the idea of ascension is like connecting into the higher parts of the spirit or higher realms. And, from a Western perspective, this is total nonsense because, we've really only discovered the physical world, or like, the time-space dimension that Einstein talked about. But like 4D, the fourth dimension is time. But, it's pretty clear to me at this point that other dimensions exist, that we're connected to them all of the time, whether we realize it or not, that we are multidimensional beings. And there's, it's really apparent on the ayahuasca experience or the DMT experience. Sometimes when people take these substances, they just end up going there and experiencing these realms, whether they expected to or not.
Right.
But if you really consciously tap into it, you can consciously access these realms and go to these places. And there are these amazing higher bliss realms. There's also lower dense realms, but ascension, it seems to be about just lifting your consciousness to be able to tap into this beauty that exists there. And it's a beauty that's hard to describe. Like you can use words like, there's truth there. Like it's so hard to describe, but I mean, from a sort of more Judeo-Christian view, you would call it like heaven. It's like the heavenly realms, and there's the entities that are there are angels and things like that.
I think every culture has a different word for it, and they're all really talking about the same thing.
Devas and things like that. It's hard to describe really, but these are just labels. But I do find that when I go up to those realms, when I ascend to those realms in the plant medicine experience, there is very intelligent, loving, benevolent sentience there, and beings and entities that are unfathomably ancient and wise and powerful. And you can call upon them, you can work with them. And I mean, what's not attractive about heaven? Who wouldn't want to go up to heaven?
It's totally attractive.
During the experience, and who wouldn't want to kind of like cultivate themselves in that direction, even in their daily life, right? Yeah. However, I think that there's something that a lot of people miss, which is kind of, I think, what we're touching on, that I think that since we are physical beings, we have physical bodies, we can't just focus our full energy on like going out of body, going up, ascending out of the body, transcending the body. It doesn't work.
Right. It's been tried.
It's been tried. People are still trying it.
Not exactly effective.
Yeah.
I mean, then you run the risk of what, in my opinion, is very prevalent in our spiritual New Age culture is bypassing, a lot of the muck and the gross day-to-day mundane stuff that we have to deal with. And I experienced that in ceremony a lot, where it was just trying to get to those realms, trying to, experience that bliss and that oneness without actually going through the portal that truly gets you there, which is, to me, is the body and the shadow and all of the deep subconscious things that we have in ourselves, like that's, in my opinion, the way to get there is by digging as deep as possible down.
Right.
And eventually you'll come up on the other side as those realms, those places, or whatever you want to call it. But so that's, that's been more my focus now. Instead of trying to access those realms via plant medicine, it's more, there's an endless amount of things to discover within our own selves. And that's, to me, is my work now. Not that I won't do these plant medicines again. If I do, it'll just be more focused on that.
Yeah.
Not so much trying to commune with my angelic guides.
Right.
Although I'm not opposed to that either.
Yeah, but I think there's just a more well-rounded approach that includes the physical body, includes physical health.
Yeah.
And that's essential. I mean, it's like an architect wanting to build the tallest building that they can, or even just a kid building a tower out of Legos. You learn pretty quickly that a single stack of Legos, it's only going to get so high before it falls over. Yeah. And the physical body is the foundation, and you can't skip past that. Like the stronger a foundation you have in the physical realm, and also in particular the nervous system, I find that for me the nervous system is what really starts to fray. And in order to compensate for that fraying, it pulls on the adrenals, and it pulls on the battery packs of the body, your body weight and all of that. And
the strength, what you said about how the stronger our bodies are, the more we can go to those places. I think that's really true. And I see how, like, we can, if we go to those places that we've been talking about, that we can access through ayahuasca, like other realms of consciousness. And I've been transported to these places where there's all sorts of like energy and things and talking to me in interdimensional languages, and I'm like, have no idea what's going on, just like totally out of my element. Like, I don't know if you're benevolent, if you're trying to eat me right now, like what's going, there's not this, and I attribute that to not having a solid ground, like solid, like sense of earth within myself. And I think that's part of, we touched on this earlier about how our culture is doing this, our Western culture is doing this intense medicine, and it can be really ungrounding. Totally. Because we're not in touch, we're not living in nature every day as these original people who have done this medicine for thousands of years are living. That's where it came from, the jungle, and they're like the most in touch with nature that you can be. They're living, walking on the earth every single day.
They're guests in their environment, not masters of their environment.
Yeah, we're walking in shoes on concrete with our phones, living in these metal houses, like not connected with the earth element as much. And so it's no wonder that we take this stuff and then it just launches us out into the stratosphere, and we don't have a secure tether to hold us down to the earth. And that's why I've seen people go up and not come down.
Really?
Yeah.
Like have like a psychotic break?
Yeah. And basically just really lose it, this stuff, because it's dangerous, and unless you're really grounded, it can throw you out of whack. And totally, so I think that's important to share too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I don't want to like scare people off of it. I mean, there is a tremendous value, tremendous beauty to the experience. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think it is important to bring the whole perspective in,
And I should say, it's also really important, the person who's serving it, because they're kind of responsible for bringing everyone back down. Right. And if they're not holding the container in such a way that happens, then it's possible to be left somewhere in between sometimes.
Totally.
I mean, you'll obviously come back eventually. Like that person that happened to, it took a few days, but she came back into her body eventually.
Yeah.
So it, I don't want to scare anyone either.
Yeah.
I just want to say that it's not something to take lightly.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very, very powerful substance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I can mention for people in that kind of situation who are super ungrounded or who are super open energetically from the medicine, if you need to come back down, you can eat salt or eat foods, like have a vegetable bowl or something like that and put salt in it. And salt actually grounds your energy body back down, and it kind of like closes up your field. And when you go to the jungle and do like extensive plant diets, the diet's very specific. They have you not eat salt, not eat oil, and different things. The reason that you don't eat salt before you do medicine is so that you can expand. But you can also use it as a tool. Like if you're in the jungles of Maui and you're super open and you need to go to the other side of the island or go back to the mainland, get on a plane or something like that, be around people, you can eat salt to kind of close up your field. Yeah,
that's a good tip.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Also just, standing on the earth barefoot always is a good trick too. Yeah. Laying on the earth, just where your body's in contact with the negative ions, just, getting the force field, take off your shoes.
Exercise too.
Exercise is good. Yeah.
Deep breathing, get the blood going. Yeah. So, what has been your process after the medicine work within the last 3 years of, going, so you say you're like going back towards the body and more into like the shadow work instead of like bypassing it. What does that look like?
I've found that certain types of work that I've found have been equally as potent and deep as medicine work. Some I found, there's men's work that I've done. I don't know if you've heard of the Mankind Project.
I've heard of it.
It's like a ritual initiation for men, because the whole concept is like our culture doesn't have that. And every other indigenous culture of this earth, there's always some sort of initiation for both men and women. In our culture, there's none of that. The initiation is you're 18, now you can smoke cigarettes, or you're 21, now you can drink, or, so that's been super powerful. Some Tantra work that I've done, and a lot of work on my health. It's been a big journey. I've spent probably hundreds of hours just self-educating myself on health. I'm kind of like a supplement connoisseur. So I'll get the new supplements, and right now I'm really undergoing a pretty intense heavy metal detox regimen.
Oh yeah, I remember you mentioned that before. I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
So what does that involve? Like, how did you get some tests to discover that you...
I've gotten tests, and it said that I've, trace amounts of heavy metals, and this is over the course of years. I've been working on this, and I've taken zeolite over the years and whatever, but never really gone into it as deep as I am now. I'm doing a full holistic approach kind of thing, where I'm hitting it from every single different angle that I can. So that involves, and also parasite cleanse and yeast cleanse and just full body detox. It's been really intense, but that involves taking binders, things that latch on to heavy metals and pull them out of the body.
Is that what zeolites do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Zeolite is a clay that does that. I have another clay that does that. There's this stuff called microsilica that is very expensive, but a small amount really goes a long way. Cilantro is great. I make a
Right.
smoothie every morning with cilantro in it and dulse seaweed and spirulina. Those are all really good. And then a few other binders, like, activated charcoal as well. And then also suppositories have been really effective. Different suppositories that detox and do all sorts of things. It's like I kind of feel like I found the fountain of youth with this stuff.
You feel more energy.
Yeah, and clear. Like I feel less like there's less things obstructing my energy pathways or something that's really allowing more clarity of thought. And I know that metals play a huge role in creating all sorts of issues with mental clarity and fatigue and all that stuff. So
wow, that's interesting. I've long struggled with like fatigue and mental clarity and things like that. Like I pretty much constantly have some layer of mental fog that I've just learned to push through a little bit. And I actually feel like I've been rebuilding my adrenals for a long time, not only from medicine work, but also just from like pushing through fatigue to a certain level where like I just want to rest all the time, but I don't feel good just resting all the time. I got to get shit going.
Yeah. So I know the feeling.
Maybe I should get some heavy metal tests and see what's going on.
I'm planning on doing a lot of writing about my experience and even creating a website that is just a resource, a one-stop shop kind of thing, where it's just a resource for all of this stuff that I'm undergoing and I'm kind of my own guinea pig on. Yeah. So, I don't know when that'll happen, but that'll be there at some point.
Okay.
And yeah, I know that feeling around the fatigue. I have been battling that as well since starting the ayahuasca work. I think it's just been this long process, and it's getting better, but for a while it's pretty bad. And I even, it's like this, almost this entity that like, it starts coming on and I'm like, oh, there you are. I know you. Like that thing that just makes me like want to drop and lay down and not do anything. Yeah. So
I feel that too. I've seen, I don't know if it's an entity in me. I wasn't necessarily having that label, but I saw the energy of it in my body during ceremony. Actually, I could see, like I was looking into my body and I could see all of my energy lines. And then there was this like, there's like orange, reddish orange, sluggish energy running through like my meridians, and it was like parasitic. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Yeah. And what I got at the time was that it was stress. It was like stress and anxiety and mental activity. Yeah. That sounds right. But who knows? I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't mean it in the sense of like a external entity that like came in me, but more of like something that I'm so familiar with that I can almost like see it and like make friends with it almost, and like, oh,
yeah,
here
it's
you
like
are.
a personality, or it's like it appears. Yeah. I get that.
Yeah. So, but like I said, this process of pulling out all this old toxins and heavy metals especially, I think, are so gnarly. I've been feeling a strong difference. I just really recommend everyone undergo some form of that, because it's so necessary just living in the 21st century, just being in the world we live in. It's just inevitable that we are exposed to these things.
Right. Yeah. I know you can get mercury from the environment, but especially from fish, and mercury accumulates in the body, and the body does not necessarily do a good job of eliminating metals. Copper toxicity is another one. Aluminum, like a lot of just regular non-natural deodorant products have aluminum in them, and a lot of our products have bullshit in them.
Lots of bullshit.
And not just metals too, but plastics. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that gets into us and over years can make us feel sluggish, and it's confusing because, I mean, I still have not discovered the source of my fatigue, but I just feel like I'm way more sluggish than I should be. And I kind of have to, it's like time for me to undergo this journey and figure out, but it's tough because, I mean, I went to a doctor, which I was like, I'm pretty sure I know what's going to come out of this. And I just went to
like
an allopathic
Western
doctor. And, you know, you tell me you have fatigue, and fatigue could be anything.
Yeah.
And he was actually better than a lot of other doctors. Like up here in Sonoma County, people are just a little more awake, even just your regular folks.
Yeah.
You know, he's on to like meditation as a healthy thing. And he had a lot of, he surprised me. But, you know, I asked him about heavy metals. I mean, he didn't know about a lot of other kind of more alternative things.
Right.
But alternative, but valid, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least worth researching and looking into.
Right. I mean, my main thing, this is why I don't go to see allopathic doctors, because they're not going to try to treat the root cause of your ailments. That they're not trained for that. The system that they participate in that's not what they're for. I mean, if you have a broken arm or something serious that, you know, Western science has discovered a cure for, that's great. But in terms of, like, say, like adrenal fatigue or, you know, digestive problems, they're not necessarily going to like hit it from all the different angles and give you different self-care protocols and supplements to take, you know, natural supplements to take, or even look at diet necessarily.
Right.
You know? So
yeah, the fact that they are not, I mean, they're getting it more now, but very recently are they starting to pay attention to nutrition, which is so absurd that nutrition has not been a part of Western medicine.
Completely absurd.
And it still really is not a part of it, but they're just on the very leading edge of figuring, you know, starting to realize the connection between what you eat and your health. It's ridiculous.
It's astounding. Really, truly. It's like, you know, I was actually reading an article today about, you know, I think it was the American Acne Society or something about acne, because I was looking at facial things, and this, you know, they mentioned in the scientific study, they're like, studies have not yet proven that nutrition is related to acne.
Wow.
And to me, that's just so obvious.
For sure.
It's so obvious, you know, it's inflammation and it starts in the gut.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, the gut is so crucial to so many other parts of the body. Also serotonin. I mean, 90% of serotonin is created in the gut. So it's like so crucial to have a healthy belly.
Yeah.
That's
another thing that we're just starting to get switched on to is healthy gut flora and probiotics and just having a healthy balance there.
Yeah.
About the acne thing though, I had a friend in high school who had really bad acne, as did a lot of people, and she was on Accutane, which is like very, very harsh chemical, like it like
antibiotic.
I don't believe it's antibiotic, but it's a very harsh chemical treatment for acne, and it like dries out your skin. It makes your skin flake off. I think it gets rid of your acne, but at a severe cost to the rest of your body. And it's people go on Accutane after trying other stuff that doesn't quite work. But I remember she just had really bad acne and was on this medication, and she was eating like really oily food. I remember, and I just saw the connection. I was like, I mean, and her face was oily. Like there was just so much oil coming out of her face, and then and I was just like should maybe like eating all that oily food Could that be contributing to her skin problems? I didn't know for sure, but it just the question struck me.
Yeah.
And she was like, she dismissed it out. She was like, no, like, it doesn't matter what I eat, it's genetic. And that's probably what the doctor told her. Like,
yeah.
And I think that still is. I mean, this was like, I don't know, 20 years ago or a little less, but it seems like that's still the way they think about it. That there's this genetic component. This is just how you are, and there's nothing you can do about it. Doesn't matter what you eat.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was just dumping oil in her body, and her skin was just like trying to get it out.
Get rid of it. Yeah.
And it couldn't do it fast enough. Her pores were clogging up, and it was causing all this. And then and she's on all these chemicals to boot. I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah, it's really tragic, actually, that's not just common knowledge that, you know, diet is so related to health.
Yeah.
And to me, because I'm so, you know, my peers and my community is so into that already. But when I think about other parts of the country or the world, I remember, like, that's a big thing still, that it's not, people just don't make that connection, I guess. Or they think in terms of calories, not in terms of nutrition. You know, how many calories am I taking in? All right, as long as I eat only one donut today, that's this many calories, and I can't exceed that amount. But you're not thinking about all the crap that's in that donut that's going to go into your liver and get lodged. And
sugar.
Yeah.
Like, sugar is like one of the most pernicious, destructive things that people consume. That they've done studies that it's actually as addicting or more addictive than cocaine. Right. Yeah. And I wouldn't say I've had a serious sugar addiction, but it gets in your head. Like, I had times where I was just like, I could feel that craving, that sugar craving. Yeah. And it's hard to kick. Yeah. Like, I've kicked it now, thankfully. I don't eat, and I just stay away from it completely. Besides fruit, I'm fine to eat fruit. I don't overeat it, but I never buy anything. Yeah. And even if I'm at the store, I'm like, oh, like those favorite cookies that I used to eat. Oh, yeah, they're on sale. I should get a pack. I'm like, fuck no. Yeah. Just don't. Just, you know? Yeah. And then when I'm at home and I feel craving, like, there's no sugar in my house for me to eat in that moment. Zero, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I've been on a really big journey with sugar addiction for all my life. I mean, I was known for having a sweet tooth when I was a kid and like eating all sorts of candy. I used to like hoard those hot chocolate packets and like eat them, just the powder, without pouring. Anyways. Yeah. Yeah. But
full of aspartame and all that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. But I finally got to a point where I was eating zero sugar completely. It was when I was doing this parasite cleanse, and it was like no sugar, not even fruit. Yeah. And that was really tough. Yeah. But I did it for months, and then got turned on to this other guy called the Medical Medium. I don't know if you've heard of him. No. But he's an interesting character. Definitely. You know, I take everything he says with a grain of salt, but he's really helped me. And he says fruit is the life-giving force of nature that is just loaded with, you know, antioxidants and nutrients that are so good for us, and we should be eating fruit. Right. So I started eating it again, and it actually made me feel incredible. Right. And then I went a little too heavy on it, started eating too much fruit. So now I'm actually just moderating it and finding this place of balance. Yeah. It seems to be going pretty good.
Yeah. My friend Lauren, who I did episode 1 with, she was talking about fruit and how she's, just, I don't know, but within a recent span of time, been getting into how nutrient dense fruit is and how good it is for you, as long as you don't overdo it. Right. But she gave me some wild blueberries. Yeah. Which are like much smaller, but super flavorful and super nutrient dense. Yeah. And yeah, she was on the superfood kick, like acai. She made me a smoothie that was like killer, out of this world, with just fruit and little almond milk and not that much other stuff, but it was like, I felt good. It's just because, you know, that's the form of sugar that our body knows how to use. Exactly. Glucose, right? Instead of fructose.
Yeah. Well, it gets turned into glucose.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that much about it, actually. Gets turned into glucose eventually, because all the food we eat gets turned into sugar. It's just how fast does it get turned into sugar, or if it's already in that form, then it's just going to shock the bloodstream.
Right.
But if it takes longer, then it, you know, your liver releases the amount of sugar that you need to give you enough energy, but it's not going to like shock your bloodstream with a bunch right at once, which gives you that super high, but then you crash.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But fruit basically is designed because it's attached to fiber, so it doesn't get released all at once.
Right.
So it's more of a sustained thing. But it's funny you mentioned wild blueberries, because this guy, medical medium, that's like his number one fruit. I would say he's all about them. He says they're really great at detoxifying heavy metals, especially from the brain. They help pull out neurotoxins from the brain. All sorts of good things. Yeah. I take them pretty much every day in a heavy metal detox smoothie that I make with cilantro and dulse and spirulina and banana.
She had frozen ones. Do you just go to this? They're just in the store.
Frozen.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. I'll go get some.
Yeah.
Now, what about meat? Do you eat meat?
You know, I do.
You sound guilty. Don't feel guilty.
No, I'm not guilty.
Okay.
If I was eating factory farmed, like whatever that horrible corporation is,
right.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's always local, totally organic. So when
that's
there's
important with meat.
Yeah. So when there's only, you know, non-organic meat available, I just don't. It's like I don't even consider it food at that point.
Well, yeah.
I don't. It's like that's not
toxic.
edible.
I mean, it's
exactly.
It's
like that's like eating a piece of rubber or something. You know,
it's eating an animal that has concentrated toxins into its body, just sitting there like lazy and fat and just super unhealthy, and then you eat that.
And also just in suffering, in like the worst conditions possible, and so, you know, I don't want to ingest that either. If we're talking energetically,
right?
So yeah, it's pretty occasional. I'd say average like once a week, sometimes once every 2 weeks. I just find that actually with all this cleansing that I've been doing, I've been less drawn to meat. So not like it's, you know, that's a good or bad thing. I just find that I'm less like I really want some meat right now. Less
inclined towards it.
Yeah. But there, you know, like the other day I did have some meat, and I had some lamb, and I felt really good after. I was like, whoa, okay, I guess my body wanted that. Yeah. So yeah. I'm not like entirely against it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found that definitely during my time of doing medicine work and yoga and meditation, and kind of really directing myself in that ascended type path. I was never going for ascension necessarily, but like definitely reaching for the realms of higher consciousness, expanded consciousness, things like that. I was eating very little meat or no meat, but I've been in a period of time since stopping medicine work, or I didn't really stop doing medicine work. I just didn't go back. I didn't feel the need, and I haven't drank ayahuasca for 3 years. Yeah. I feel like I probably will.
Yeah, me too.
You know, I don't know when, but I've just been waiting for the time where it feels right, and it hasn't come in the last 3 years. But in this time, I've been also doing kind of a similar thing, just living mostly sober, not even really drinking. I don't smoke pot or anything. And just, getting into health, getting into my body, putting more body weight on, and eating meat. Yeah. And for me, I know a lot of people have moral objections to meat and all of that. And, you know, I agree with that on the factory farm level. Yeah. I wish that I had access to wild meat or wild game. I would love to eat some, you know, venison or elk or something like that, and try that out. I've never actually had any. I've had jerky and stuff like that, but I'd love to have some fresh steaks. But I find that organic grass-fed beef and bison feels super good. It's like, because I feel like I've been recovering. I had, moderate adrenal fatigue and just general fatigue.
Yeah.
And from getting exercise and working out and eating meat, eating eggs, eating plenty of greens and vegetables, I really feel like not only do I feel physically healthier, but I also feel more mentally stable, like less swayed by emotions, and my emotional peaks and valleys are stabilized or leveled out. And I mean, a lot of people are having a really hard time due to the current political state and all the news that comes out, like really throws people off.
Right.
And really, because people are very empathic, and I fully understand that. And I don't like what's going on either, but I've been finding that I'm way less affected by the external world. I'm way less affected by even just other people freaking the fuck out. It doesn't make me nervous.
That's
like
great.
I'm kind of finding my own stability through physical health. And it is great, because for some reason I just was not initially inclined in that direction. I was inclined to open my third eye and go super psychedelic Evil Knievel and see how far I could go before getting smacked,
Right.
But I think we all eventually get smacked when we go in that direction, because it's unsustainable.
Yeah, I mean, what goes up must come down, right?
Yeah.
According to the laws of gravity, which we are, living on this planet, so we have to obey its laws. But yeah, I sounds like we're on the same path. I'm really happy you found that and are feeling that sounds like more energetically sturdy and protected and psychically protected.
Totally.
I actually found recently, I saw this Ayurvedic practitioner, and she gave me a really good tip. And I've known about this practice of Abhyanga, which is covering your whole body in oil and rubbing your whole body in tons of oil, just lathering it on. And
what kind of oil?
I use sesame because I run more cold, and sesame is warming. But you can use coconut if you're really hot. Coconut is cooling. It just depends on your body type. I like sesame, and all in my hair too, and all over. And it's been really great. She said that, she was kind of reading me, and she was like, "So you're kind of energetically open, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I feel very like exposed to the world and to people's emotions." And she said that this practice would really help with that. And I've been doing it, and I really feel that it has, that I just feel more enclosed in my own body and less like totally open and vulnerable to the whims of people's energetic and emotional selves, because everyone's projecting, whether we're aware of it or not. I feel like that's a big thing that happens, is just people come up and start projecting on you. And so this has been really great in that kind of psychic defense. And so that's kind of my story around that.
So is it only the oil part, or is there like a practice involved as well? Well,
it's great for circulation. So I'm doing it for, as part of my self-care while I'm going through this cleansing protocol. I have a gua sha, which is a wooden piece of wood that you rub on your skin, and it opens up it gets the circulation flowing, it gets your lymphs moving, which is what draws, toxins out of the body essentially, and brings them to where they need to go to get released. So yeah, it's for that, it's for circulation, it's for it. She said it would help me gain weight, which is great, put on more body mass. And yeah, I add grapefruit essential oil to the oil, and that's also very cleansing, so that helps move things. So yeah, it's kind of for that purpose.
Have you, so I don't know how long you've been doing it, but have you been noticing your body weight going up?
Minuscule amounts. It's been only about a week or a week and a half that I'm doing it. Yeah. And I also feel like with this intense cleansing that I am doing, as much as I'm gaining weight, I'm releasing a lot as well. So I'm not necessarily trying to gain a bunch of weight right now as I'm undergoing this process. I feel like what is happening is that I'm releasing a lot of toxins that have been lodged in me for years, even decades. And they've been actually along with parasitical yeast overgrowth in my digestive tract that actually inhibit nutrient absorption.
Right.
So by clearing this stuff out and really just, clearing it out and then repopulating my microbiome with probiotics and good organisms, it's going to allow for more nutrient absorption so that the food I'm eating actually does get absorbed and does give me energy and, will give me extra weight as well eventually. So.
And is exercise a part of your regimen?
Yeah, definitely.
What do you do?
I keep it pretty light right now. I don't want to put my body into a fight or flight response because then it directs energy away from, healing and cleansing and puts it towards, oh shit, I'm being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, just run. Yeah. So I'm not trying to do that kind of exercise.
It's not super strenuous.
Yeah, I have a rebounder, which is really good for moving the lymphs as well.
Which is kind of like a trampoline, right?
Yeah, it's a mini trampoline.
Okay, yeah.
You just bounce on it. And something about the bouncing effect really gets the blood flowing and is great for detoxifying. And long walks, maybe a jog, yoga. Try to do yoga every day. And that's enough for me. I've been doing a plank, like a 50 seconds of plank every day. It's one of my goals is to just do that just to get the core strength going. And
right.
Yeah.
Something I've been doing for the first time in my life is weightlifting, which I've never really, like I've had like dumbbells that I'll just bicep curl every now and then or something like that, but really kind of like, cause I'm trying to put muscle onto my body. I feel like I will go back to an ayahuasca ceremony, probably within the next year, who knows, but I feel like I can feel that energy coming back in, and I've done so much work on myself in the last 3 years to integrate all of the lessons that stacked up, from all of those ceremonies, all the things that I learned, but wasn't applying because I was so caught up in the energy of it or whatever. Yeah. That's been what I've been doing the last 3 years. And this whole process of building my physical health is part of it, but like really consciously trying to put muscle onto my body. Yeah. And I've been really surprised at the result. I made a post on my Facebook and Instagram about it a couple of weeks ago, but not only have I had a better physical result, I feel like it's opening up my tissues, kind of like a gua sha does, where because your tissues get like stacked on top of each other, especially if you're not moving, and the gua sha kind of like breaks up those layers and lets flow in there. And I've been finding that weightlifting is doing that too by just, making those muscles flex. It's like I'm getting better blood flow and better lymph. And I just feel like my tissues are more, I should do the gua sha as well. Actually, I have one, but I just haven't. I usually go in the sauna, but it's summer, so it's too hot. Yeah. But I usually do that in the winter and fall. Nice. But I've been noticing also increased mental clarity too, just from doing that. And I feel like, I'm detoxing from, it's sort of an unexpected result, I think. And I think people really, especially men, I think a lot of men undervalue what weightlifting can do. And I wrote on my post that I never was really into weightlifting. I felt fine in my body. I felt strong enough. And I didn't want to do it for I wasn't interested in investing all that time and energy just for like aesthetic purposes, just to like be this like muscular bro or whatever, you know. It's like,
I know that one.
Yeah, there's a few of those guys out there, right?
Oh yeah, no. That was my resistance too. It's like, what's my intention in doing this? Is just to like have some muscles,
just so for vanity purposes.
Right, exactly.
So I just never really did it my entire life. But yeah, and so I never had the experience. I never actually really understood the value of it for myself. And sure, there is an aesthetic value to it, obviously. That's why a lot of people do it, but there's a tremendous health value that I think a lot of people really overlook. So
you're making me rethink weightlifting right now.
Yeah. And it's fun too. It's actually fun to, you know, see progress, not only to witness the progress on your body, but to feel stronger, you know, to feel healthier, and to just, you know, week after week after week, track your progress. Like, wow, I can, like, what was initially hard, I can now lift easily. And then just, and it's probably a topic for another time about, and I know I'm learning, like but it's important to do it slowly. I'm very like a gung ho person. When I get into something, I just go full bore. Yeah. But I've learned my lesson, I think, through going gung ho into ayahuasca. I've learned that, you know, there's no shortcuts for anything. And that really the best way to go about things is to build a foundation. So I've been starting slowly, and for anyone who wants to get into it, I recommend the same.
Nice.
Because you can hurt yourself, especially if you're, you know, if your body is like super tight from not working out, not stretching, and you just go into the gym and try and lift, then you can hurt yourself. But it is, it's worth getting into, I think. So.
Yeah. As you know, I'm moving to Nevada City tomorrow.
Right.
And
if you weren't, I would say let's go work out.
Yeah. Totally. But I've been thinking about taking up like some sort of martial art as a way to get in shape, you know, bring some discipline into my life. And it sent me on this whole rabbit hole of like so there's a kung fu studio up there, so I've been thinking about that one as opposed to like karate or aikido or MMA or kickboxing or Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu. And so it sent me on this whole YouTube spree of like, you know, what's the best martial art, or like what's the most effective. And so what it led me to is this whole like movement of people who are like against the traditional forms, and they're basically like, you know, Muay Thai and I guess Muay Thai is very traditional, but they're saying like jiu-jitsu especially, and MMA and stuff like that, and wrestling and Western boxing and stuff like that will defeat like the traditional forms of kung fu and karate and aikido. And it does in practice. It seems like they're just more effective because the other forms don't really do as much grappling as like jiu-jitsu. Right. You know, so if a jiu-jitsu fighter will get a, you know, kung fu person on the ground on the mat, then they're dead. They're done. Yeah. You know? Totally. In theory, although kung fu does utilize like eye jabs and stuff that wouldn't be in practice in a contest format, but in a real life situation, you don't know what would win, I guess, because
well, yeah, in a real life situation, anything goes. You're going to kick them in the nuts and do whatever you want.
Exactly. Yeah. But the rules, like the way it's laid out, from what I've gathered, is that jiu-jitsu is like, if I'm really looking for something like in terms of that's going to save my life in self-defense, and like, you know, learning MMA or jiu-jitsu or something like that would be the way to go. But I'm actually leaning towards just doing kung fu anyways, or something like that, because I'm more just I resonate with the Taoist philosophies and the, you know, principles of meditation that they talk about. And so energy, like I feel like they're more teaching about chi and bioenergetics and stuff, as opposed to the Western styles, which is just about competition and how to take down your opponent the quickest.
Right. Totally.
Yeah. I don't know how we got on this topic, but
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on, you know, what you're going for. Like if you want to, if, you know, your goal is to be the best fighter or to defend yourself or whatever, then yeah, you probably would want to go with jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or something. And all of the MMA guys who fight for a living at the highest levels. Yeah. I mean, at this point, it's like in the beginning of the UFC and all of that, it was just kind of like, let's throw all these styles together and see what happens. And jiu-jitsu has kind of, jiu-jitsu especially has emerged as a superior form. Yeah. At least for grappling. Yeah. And then for striking, Muay Thai, American boxing, like you said, kickboxing, and even karate. Yeah. To a degree. But I mean, I haven't been in a fight since high school. Don't anticipate getting in a fight. There's been many situations where I could have been in a fight, but I avoided it. Yeah. It's not really that hard, I think, to avoid a fight, unless just some insane person charges you on like PCP or something like that. Right. But what are the chances? And you can still run away. Yeah.
I mean, you never really know.
You never really know.
Anything could happen, but I'm going more against like, I'm going to do this for my personal development. Totally. And not do this for like the off chance that I might get attacked someday.
Of course.
Although it'll help in that situation too, obviously, because there's still a lot of great things about Kung Fu. Right. Know? It's not like it's just this, you know, it can be effective. I believe it definitely can against maybe an average person, not someone who's trained in jiu-jitsu, but someone who's just like trying to pick a fight with you, you know, it would help to have that discipline.
Yeah, and I was going to say that martial arts in general do teach discipline and teach you, I think, well, first off, it's difficult. I think doing anything that's challenging, difficult, and expanding your skills, it is good for personal development. You develop confidence. Right. Whatever it is, if you're challenging yourself and you're making progress and succeeding, it's gonna feel good, right? Whether it's Aikido or Jiu-Jitsu or whatever it is. So there's definitely that benefit. But I'm more drawn to kind of like you are, more of these sort of, I don't know what to call them, but there's a spirituality, you know. Yeah. I'm drawn to Aikido. I don't know that I'm so drawn that I'm going to go study it, but if I were to study martial art, that's the one I would go, because I like the philosophy of it. And it is effective, maybe not against a trained fighter, but I like the philosophy of being still or being stable and using the opponent's energy against them. So they come at you and then you orient yourself and angle yourself and leverage yourself to use their energy against them and throw them. Yeah. And then there's like different grapples and holds and ways that you can lock them down and twist their shit the wrong way.
Right. And ultimately it's all about de-escalation.
Exactly.
And just stopping the fight.
It's a defensive
before
art.
It begins, ideally.
Yeah. You know, and if I were to get in a fight, I wouldn't want to hurt the person, to be honest. Like, like, oh, this is my chance to smash somebody in the face. Like, I would rather just, do what I have to do to end the conflict and get away. I'm a pretty nonviolent person, and if somebody else has got their bullshit that they're trying to take out on me, I'm just going to do my best to get out of that path. I don't want to punish them. Right. Because, they've got whatever they've got going on. Yeah. And, they're choosing to direct it at me instead of taking care of it within themselves. And I'm not trying to knock that person out.
Right. Just do what you need to do to stay safe and move on. Yeah.
Unless that person's like trying to kill me, then you do what you have to do in the moment.
Yeah.
But ideally don't want to hurt anybody.
Right.
That's just me.
I right there with you.
Yeah. Well, I know that you got to get going because you're moving tomorrow. So I want to honor your time frame. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Well, we covered a lot.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. Well, if
maybe
you could,
is there anything that you want to add or?
Well, I want to ask you, so like from all of, let's say there's somebody who's never drank ayahuasca and they're drawn to the benefits, but kind of nervous about, because there's so many things you hear, from the highest high stories to scare stories, and it can be a little bit daunting to kind of enter into this community and into this experience. So, looking back on it all, with all the profound benefits that you've received and the lessons that you've learned from making mistakes, and we've all made mistakes because this is such a new path to the Western world. Like, what's something that you might offer to the brand new person who's just going in completely blind?
I would say look at ayahuasca as the keys to a vehicle, and who's driving that vehicle is really important.
In terms of the facilitator. Sure.
Yeah. Right now we're seeing an enormous amount of people. This is one of the whole things that I'm really not happy with the whole ayahuasca culture right now, is that, people go to South America, they'll drink maybe 5 or 6 times, and they'll come back and they'll start leading ceremonies and charging $200 per pop, and maybe serve the medicine and then put their iPod on with some really trippy music, and that's it.
Horrible.
And you definitely don't want to. Hey, you might go to one of those types of ceremonies and have a amazing experience, but to me, this is such a potent medicine with such a long lineage of people who have been doing it for thousands of years, and they have a lot to offer in terms of their teachings and in terms of how they work with the medicine to help you open and receive it and heal from it with it. So I would say, it's just be really, really discriminating about who you sit with.
For sure.
Because
it's important.
There's plenty of people out there who just may not have the experience needed to really facilitate deep transformational growth with it.
I have to say, most of the bad experiences I've heard have been in circles like that.
Exactly.
Because not only does that person not have training and not know how to help guide people through difficult experiences, they may not also really be in touch with how strong the medicine is, what plants are in the medicine, how much to serve people, things like that.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. And it's hard to know who is properly trained, but you want somebody who has undergone a formal apprenticeship from a very experienced teacher, and probably has, traditionally, and it's different for different tribes, but as far as I understand it, traditionally people there's a long apprenticeship process, many years, like 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, or whatever it is, at least a few years of full-time immersion, full-time study. It's not an easy thing. I think it's probably one of the most difficult paths to actually walk, and to be an ayahuasquero is one of the most difficult things. And you cannot go drink ayahuasca 3 to 5 times and come back and
no way. That's still kindergarten level.
So if you can find yourself to an experienced facilitator, that's best. And also I would say don't drink a lot of medicine your first time. Like, even if they're trying to serve you a lot, I don't know. Like, I would think that I was lucky in my first ceremony to be with, there was 2 facilitators, and both of them were very experienced. And I was like excited and ready to go for it, and they're like, let's start you off slow,
right?
You know,
Yeah.
and because some people are very sensitive to it, more sensitive than most, and it's best to just have a little bit, maybe like I don't want to say how much, because I don't want to put a specific quantity out there, but a little bit, and see how it feels.
Yeah, it's my thought that someone who's experienced and is a true facilitator will be able to sense how much you need and how much is good for you.
For sure.
And, you know, because they're so in tune with the medicine,
right?
So intuitive from doing this work for so long. And they've done so much work on themselves and opened up the higher centers in their, you know, whatever. That I feel like if it's really a legitimate ayahuasquero or ayahuasquera, it's, you know, they'll take care of you. Yeah.
But as a brand new neophyte, you may not know how to recognize that person.
Oh yeah, it might.
And sometimes, and sometimes they, you know, they talk the talk. Yeah. And they're wearing all the Shipibo clothing, and they've got the feather fans and the rattles, and they look legit. And you know, maybe they have some power, they have some great songs or whatever, but they themselves have a lot to learn. You just do have, it's definitely a world you want to tiptoe into carefully, you know. There's no rush. Like, don't rush yourself to, like, you know.
It's the thing is, it's not necessary for spiritual development. It's just another tool. And there's so many tools out there. And if you think that, oh, I like need ayahuasca to get to this next level of my development, that's just not true. I mean, it could be really incredible and healing for you. It could open you up to amazing new experiences and development within yourself. But I firmly believe it's not necessary. I mean,
I agree.
Look at the Buddha. He didn't need ayahuasca to become enlightened.
Right.
And then there was something else I wanted to say about that whole shadow side of the facilitating is, even if you're in South America, and just because you're down there doesn't mean everyone down there is a facilitator.
Right.
There's plenty of people down there who are taking advantage of ayahuasca tourism,
right,
and just trying to make money and just trying to give you an experience, and even putting super potent herbs like
Toei.
Yeah. What's the English word? Datura. Yeah. Which is not something you want to.
And people have died in the Amazon from ayahuasca ceremonies. You do?
Actually, I went to school with him in high school.
Yeah. That's terrible.
From this area.
In almost every case where somebody dies in the Amazon, it's from somebody drinking ayahuasca that has datura in it, which is, it's a very powerful plant. It's extremely advanced, and it is part of poisonous. It's extremely poisonous. Yeah. It is part of the ayahuasca culture, but really, like, you know, it's not a plant that's very often used, even by advanced shamans. Yeah. And people, like there are people, they're Peruvians, and they play the part, and they might make the ayahuasca themselves and throw whatever in there and make something that's actually deadly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
it gives ayahuasca a bad name because it's like, oh, someone went down, they drank ayahuasca, they died. Yeah. But it wasn't through the proper way, you know.
Exactly. And I know this, you know, we're painting kind of a dangerous picture of it, which it's good to be aware of all this. And I would also just say that the way that I've experienced this medicine works, and I've seen this with other people, is that it almost chooses you when you're ready for it, and you'll feel the call. And I would really just recommend opening up to that if, you know, that higher power or force, whatever that, you know, if it's calling you, then you can choose, all right, it's calling me, I'm going to go for it, or I'm not. And if not, that's fine too. But if it's calling you, life will probably give you a circumstance or a situation where it's available and it, you know, you can have that experience. And then it's up to you to feel into, is this the right one? You know, is this does this feel right for me? If it doesn't feel right, by all means, like don't just go. Wait, just hold out until it is right.
Yeah.
Because there's no need to rush.
Right.
There's no need at all. It's just.
And it is an interesting kind of almost mystical thing how it finds its way to you. And other people have talked about this too, and I've experienced it. And I feel like this will be a theme that, because people keep talking about this, how it calls you. Yeah. And I think it's hard to imagine what that feels like if you haven't experienced that. But it has a way, like when you're being called, the experience of being called by it, it's like you just start hearing about it, like people are talking about it, or it just comes from all these different angles of your life, and then all of a sudden there's an opportunity where you can go. As opposed to, oh, I want to go trip on ayahuasca, and you just you really like seek it out in a very direct way. Yeah. You know, because whatever, I don't know. And there's a lot of curiosity about it right now, and I know that I've had more of a cautionary tone about it, even though the podcast is about the benefits of plant medicine and personal growth. But it is super important to talk about the totality of the situation, because a lot of people just, you know, dive headlong into Narnia and they're just find themselves like way over their heads. Yeah. So it's good to go about it in a balanced way, as with all other things. Exactly. Yeah.
You know, I'll probably be integrating some of my ceremonies for the rest of my life, you know. Yeah. Maybe even a few lifetimes after that. Yeah. Like, who knows, you know, I've done so many, and to me it's like, what's the point of doing so many if you can't integrate it? So that's
the real work.
Yeah, that to me is the reason one should do it in the first place, and the reason one should go back is because they feel like they've integrated that first one. Like, okay, now it's time to like continue that work and go to the next one. Yeah. But sometimes integration can take months or years, and that's fine. I think if I could redo how I did it, I would just do it way less, and be easier on my physical body, and not get into the, you know, not dig the hole essentially that I dug myself, that I'm currently pulling myself out of, and really just work on the integration piece of, you know, just, okay, that was a lot, let's take that in for a few months, see how life goes, and then go from there.
And it takes time to apply. It takes time to change, you know, to make real lasting change. So I have had the feeling after a ceremony, like, of really getting it, you know, and just feeling like immediately after, in the days or weeks after, feeling super clear, like, wow, I really get it now. I totally see all these things in myself. Totally. I see where I was, where I am now, how I can be, the totality of it all. And ayahuasca actually remains in your system for a while. Like, there's a feeling, there's an energy that stays with you for a little while, which will eventually fade. But I found it's so important to actually, you have to make those changes, because you will come back down. And if you change nothing and you just think, oh, I'm forever changed now, and you know, I'm just, it's healed me and I've switched on to this new way of being. Well, many people find themselves exactly back where they started. And you really have to take the time to get in touch with the insights that you've gained, the changes that you need to make, and, you know, go about it. For myself, go about it in a structured way. I'm like, okay, this is a thought pattern that I've had that's producing certain negative result in me.
Yeah.
And, I have to become more conscious of that on a daily basis, and I have to really apply effort to tracking that and changing that.
Yeah.
And those kind of things can take a lot of time.
Yeah.
And that's really where it's at. And if you don't do that, then you basically forget.
Yeah.
And you end up back at square one.
Totally. There's another piece I just want to mention before I go, and that's that what you're talking about is integrating all of this and, say, working on changing some of our patterns. It's really hard if the people that we hang out with are not willing to accept our changes or our transformation, or if the current paradigm that our community is not in the paradigm of like being open to transforming and seeing what changes we can make. And that's just something to be aware of, is the people we become who we hang out with, essentially, I think.
Yeah.
And so if we're hanging out with people that aren't, on the same path and aren't really focused on doing this work, it's going to be a lot harder to maintain that, I'll call it a vibration, like a certain vibration that you are of, like, really trying to work on yourself. And
right.
So I think it's important that the concept of Sangha community is like, it's important to have other friends and like-minded people who you can talk about this stuff with and like
totally
resonate with, and share your experiences of your journey with.
And I've met a lot of good people in ceremonies, not in the ceremony because it's a solo experience mostly, but beforehand, afterwards, people who really share my dedication to growth. And it's so much easier to hang out with people who understand that, have had that experience and support it. And I think whether it's through ayahuasca or any other method of personal growth, if you're growing, sometimes you outgrow people. Sometimes you come to realize that certain people in your life are toxic and negative, and sometimes it's hard to let go of those people. Sometimes you can't let go of those people if they're family members or whatever. And those are unique challenges, but true. It's definitely good to have good people around that really can support you through the everyday part of making that change.
People who can hold you in your blissful awakenings and your, oh my God, bro, I just hit God consciousness, and also your complete shatterings and falling apart, and like, wow, I just hit rock bottom. Like I've just hit the depth of my despair, and like seen that, and someone who can hold you in that is important too.
The second one, the people who can do the second one are especially valuable.
Exactly.
If you have some of those in your life, consider yourself very lucky. For sure. Well, one of my hopes is that this podcast can be one gathering point for community. I'd like to eventually develop some kind of forum board or some kind of way that people can support each other or find each other or share their own stories. Maybe we can build a support structure out of this too. So
sounds like a great resource.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for coming by.
You're welcome.
And it was
Thanks for having me.
It's good to get to know you in a conversation in this way. And I do plan to come out to Nevada City.
Great.
Maybe some point down the road. So perhaps we could chat again.
Definitely hit me up.
My guest next week is Daniel Shankin of Mount Tam Psychedelic Integration. He has created a group in the North Bay area to support and assist people in integrating their psychedelic experiences. Now, I've wanted to do an episode on integration for a while now, but first off, what do I mean by integration? Well, integration is the process that takes place after a psychedelic experience. And it's the process of reintegrating back into daily life or into the larger part of one's life, and finding ways to apply the insights and wisdom gained through the psychedelic experience into one's life so that the benefits really last and take root. This is a process which isn't spoken much about in our culture, but I think is very important. And I've seen many times people have these really profound experiences, but if you don't purposefully focus on integrating and applying them to your life, eventually you just kind of go back to the way that you were. And you can go from this place of profound realization where you feel like I'm fixed and, I'll never have to deal with these things ever again. And then some matter of weeks or months later, all of a sudden you're straight back into your own bullshit and you have no idea how. So we talk about the process of integration and this group that he's created and dozens of people come every week to speak about their experiences and to listen to the experiences of others. So we had a great conversation and a lot of very insightful things that came from it. Check me out on social media on Facebook and Instagram at Chronicles of a Psychonaut. As previously mentioned, I'm also on the YouTube. The link is in the description. And I'm on Twitter at FinchCanFly, although let's not kid ourselves, nobody actually uses Twitter, or at least nobody that I know. Literally, I think nobody that I know uses Twitter. Anyway, I want to start playing some medicine songs for you guys after the episodes conclude. And these are songs that are typically sung in ayahuasca ceremonies. And this song, I played the very, very beginning in the introduction, and it's called Agua de Estrellas. And this is one of my favorite songs. It's really beautiful, and anytime somebody sings it in ceremony, it's deeply touching for some reason, but it's a prayer basically. And you'll hear the lines Agua de Luz, Agua de Estrellas, which means water of light or water of the light, water of the stars. Pachamama, vienes del cielo, which means Pachamama, you come from heaven. And Pachamama is basically Mother Earth from the Incan South American traditions. So it's singing to the Earth Mother, and they say, corazón means heart, limpia corazón, sana corazón, calma corazón, cleanse the heart, heal the heart, calm the heart. And yeah, it's a prayer to the Mother Earth and prayer to the nature spirits, or basically a prayer to the divine, more or less, to bring healing. So it's a healing song. So I hope you enjoy that. I think I'm going to play a new Icaro or a new medicine song after every episode, just to share with you guys the beauty of this music that's in ceremony. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful parts of ceremony, so why not? So again, this is Agua de Estrellas, and this is sung by Diego Palma.
Agua de estrellas, Pachamama vienes del cielo. Agua de luz, agua de estrellas, corazón, agua del cielo, mamá. En tus ojos de agua infinita se bañan las estrellitas, mamá. En tus ojos de agua infinita se bañan las estrellitas, mamá. Agua de luz, agua de estrellas, Pachamama, vienes del cielo. Agua de luz, agua de estrellas, Pachamama, vienes del cielo. Limpia, limpia, limpia corazón, agua brillante, sana, sana, sana el corazón, agua bendita, calma, calma, calma el corazón, agua del cielo, mamá. Limpia, limpia, limpia el corazón, agua brillante, sana, sana, sana el corazón, agua bendita, calma, calma, calma el corazón, agua del cielo, mamá. En tus ojos de agua infinita se bañan las estrellitas, mamá. En tus ojos de agua infinita se bañan las estrellitas, mamá. Agua de luz, agua de estrellas, Pachamama, vienes del cielo. Agua de luz, agua de estrellas, Pachamama, vienes del cielo.